You know that stinking hypocrite Obama is frequently seen in churches? Have you seen him creeping Jesus with his hands together, praying? Did you see Christianity on his sleeve? Did you know that he used to attend churches in Chicago and sing along all happy clappy for Jesus and for God? Obama, the Syrian Christian town of Molalla, is on fire this evening. This evening. Its ancient Christian churches are on fire. Its priests and its parishioners are being butchered by Al-Qaeda, paid by you. Churches in which the language of Jesus himself is still spoken. The last churches in the world still speaking Aramaic, the language of Jesus, are now on fire. The faithful Christians fleeing for their lives and being murdered by Al-Qaeda, paid for by you. And you are about to become their air force. You're a disgusting hypocrite, Obama. You're a liar when you say you're a Christian. You care nothing about Christians. You care nothing about God. You don't believe in the prophets, peace be upon them. You just believe in the prophets and how to get a bigger piece of them for the people that backed you. In Syria, in the Middle East, across the Muslim world, and if I'm any judge, and I got it right, over Iraq, that violence will cascade around the entire globe and will not miss your country or mine. There will be war throughout the world, and starting probably next week. President Obama, with the support of less than 10% of the American people, President Francois Hollande, a so-called socialist president of France, with the support of 11% of the French, and of course, that old reliable warmonger, the so-called State of Israel, which was on military maneuvers in the Mediterranean off the coast of Syria with, who else? The United States military. After all, the US is paying for both militaries. Just the other day, firing shells and missiles towards Syria just to test them out. In a remarkable revelation, John Kerry, the man who confessed to committing war crimes in Vietnam, a war in which the United States dropped an ocean of chemical weapons on the people of Vietnam, with, as a result, 3 generations later, children still being born deformed in the maternity hospitals of Vietnam. John Kerry revealed just yesterday that actually the Arabs are going to pay for this latest war. That's right. Arab states are going to pay for every American missile, every American bomb, and when it comes to it, as it will, every American bullet, every American boot on the ground in Syria. You may think I'm being apocalyptic. I'm following these events by the hour. In fact, now by the minute. President Obama began by trying to sleepwalk us into what he said would be a warning shot. A warning shot, of course, means one in which no one is hurt, but which serves as a warning to a vessel to veer and change its course. It has now become full-scale regime change that the United States is bent upon. If you followed the Senate hearings in the week, then you'll know that in order to gain the support of right-wing Republican hawks, Obama has now veered and changed course. And it's not going to be a shot across the bows, a warning shot anymore. It's full-scale war. And it was always going to be, because anybody who thinks that Syria and its friends will take lying down an attack, another attack, by the same Western Zionist coalition of the killing, lying down, better take a lie down and think again. This is going to be big, and it's now definitely going to happen. So I'm asking you, what you think the coming war with Syria is going to look like and what its reverberations will be. As I predicted to you last week, 2 hours before the vote, the British Parliament threw out the idea of Britain participating in this war. And you could feel the pain of the British media at the results of British democracy. Only 11% of British people wanted to go to war with Syria, but the media thought that the parliamentarians should do it anyway, because for them, democracy is a sham. In fact, every day, the rancid leader writer Martin Kettle in The Guardian this morning arguing actually the Parliament really was in favour of war. We should reword the motion and try all over again. Well, I say this, that the implications of this war will be felt when our children, as yet unborn, are still alive. This is going to change the world because it's going to spark a war across the Middle East region and across the world, which will become simply uncontrollable. It will be an uncontrollable brush fire of the kind you often see in sunny California.
I am very, very deep in my heart to see people from Syria to be killed in that way and to be killed in the future in this bombing which United States is going to bomb over there. That is deep in my heart. But here is my question. You know, the people from Syria, they have the same blood like the people from Congo. The people from Congo have been killed with Tony Blair,
yes,
Bill Clinton, and Margaret Albright.
Yes.
Today, the people from Syria, they're going to cry the same way as the people from Congo. They've been crying the 5 million. They've used Rwanda and Uganda to bomb Congo. To kill
Look,
more
Joseph,
than 5 million.
Joseph, I've got to stop
Congo.
you. I've got to stop you because I'm running out of time. But I want to say to you, this is a subject really occupying my mind because I'm currently making a movie, a documentary movie, I hope a feature-length one. You can read all about it at The Blair Doc on Facebook and Twitter. You can go to Kickstarter.com and see it. Tony Blair, Paul Kagame, Rwanda and Uganda are responsible for millions of dead people in the Congo, the land where the greatest of all African leaders was murdered by imperialism. Patrice Lumumba, may God have mercy upon his soul, could have emerged as the Lion of Africa, could have led the Congo to a future that it deserves, but it has been robbed of it by the same imperialist powers who are revving up their engines and firing their Tomahawk cruise missiles, getting them ready to fly and murder Syrians in large numbers. But if they think Syria is going to take it lying down, they've got another thing coming.
Say no to war in Syria. No more war in Syria.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Committee will be in order. The committee will be in order.
We don't want another war. Launching cruise missiles means another war. The American people do not want this.
From the people who brought you the fantasy about the despicable video that caused the Benghazi massacre, who use the IRS as a weapon to go after their political enemies, the ones who chip away at our First, Second, and Fourth Amendment rights, only to turn around and trumpet their right to hide behind the Fifth Amendment. The latest to come out of the Obama administration? Just a little slap at Syria. Really, Mr. President? Now you want the American people, after all they've been through, to take you at your word and blindly follow you into yet another Middle East conflict? This week, the Obama administration seeks congressional approval to strike Syria. The narrative? We go in for just a couple of days, do a quick military slap, no intention of regime change, and then call it a day. We'll show them. But right now, Russian and American destroyers and an untold number of submarines are lining up off the Syrian coast. Iranian fast boats are already in the Persian Gulf, where other American warships are positioned. Once we start the bombing, the Syrians will call on their allies, Iran and Russia. Now, let me see if I understand this. We're looking to bomb Syria because of an alleged chemical attack, risking a potential face-off with Iran and Russia in a move that will ultimately benefit who? Al-Qaeda? Mr. President, why for 2 years did the United States and the world stand silent as the civil war unfolded in Syria? Well over 100,000 casualties, women and children, victims of bombings and shootings, missile attacks, executions, dismemberment, and decapitation. Now, 1,400 of the over 100,000 are believed to be victims of chemical weapons. Now, we need to engage in a dust-up with Syria? Mr. President, why is killing one way more heinous and worthy of our response than another? And why now? And what about Israel? We know you don't like Bibi, but hell, don't you have an obligation to not put our allies in harm's way? And your reason?
I didn't set a red line. The world set a red line. Congress set a red line when it ratified that treaty. My credibility is not on the line. The international community's credibility is on the line.
That's just not true. It's another one of your false narratives.
A red line for us is we start seeing a whole bunch of chemical weapons moving around or being utilized. That would change my calculus. That would change my equation.
A lie is a lie is a lie. You said it, the world heard it, and the world heard you say it. Syria heard you say it, and they gave you no mind, and they did it anyway. And by the way, if you didn't draw a red line, why are we going in? No one respects us. You've done this to us. Why draw red lines when everyone knows that your red lines are nothing more than green lights over and over again? But I got to give you one. You're right. Your credibility is not on the line. With all due respect, Mr. President, you have no credibility. To be credible, one must be clear and constant. Your actions must be swift and certain. American lives weigh in the balance. We are a war-weary nation. Even you admit that. We are tired of spilling the blood. And to add insult to injury, you don't even take care of the vets when they come home. Many of them with fewer body parts and certainly more demons than when they left. And if you're so dead set against the killing of children that you are willing to send us into yet another conflict, will you guarantee that the 1,000-pound Tomahawk missiles that you will heap on Syria won't kill children? Or are they simply your collateral damage? Will the murders of those children be less significant than those we go to avenge? Tell us, what is the American strategic interest? What is the end game? Did you think this one out? Or is politics so much a part of your calculus that it's all about you? A shot across the bow to hold Assad accountable? Degrade his capacity to carry out future attacks? Deter this behavior in the future? Little Syria survives an attack by the most militarily powerful country in the world. Well, at least we were until you showed up. And whose side are we on anyway? Take a look at this. These are the Syrian rebels whose side you want to take. They are killing young men, execution style. And if the use of chemical weapons is violating international standards, why isn't the international community standing shoulder to shoulder with you? The Brits, for the first time since 1782, have refused a request for military action by their prime minister. NATO has rejected your call. The European Union has rejected your call. The UN, of course, is still investigating. And the Italians? Well, they're too busy dancing with Berlusconi at one of his bunga bunga parties. And your good friend Putin had to give you a little lecture on international law.
Only the UN Security Council could sanction the use of force against a sovereign state. Any other pretext or method which might be used to justify the use of force against a sovereign state is inadmissible and can only be interpreted as an aggression.
You don't poke a stick in the eye of the tiger and expect the tiger to not react. The rebels you want to support are Al-Qaeda. You remember them? They took down the World Trade Center a few blocks from here. Ansar al-Sharia. You remember them? They massacred 4 Americans in Benghazi. And the Muslim Brotherhood. You remember them? You threw our friend Mubarak under the bus for them. And it's since worked out so well in Egypt. And by the way, no Americans were massacred in Syria like they were in Benghazi. So we should go to war for you to save face after making a dumb statement that you now say you didn't make? Have you thought this through? Your feckless foreign policy and paper tiger image have forced your hand. Remember, you said that you wouldn't go to war unless there was an imminent threat to national security. What case have you made? Last I checked, Assad has never attacked us. And by the way, didn't you get elected as an anti-war president? Didn't you vote against the last war in Iraq? And here we are 5 years into your administration, and American men and women are still on the ground fighting boogeymen in caves in Afghanistan who will return to their tribal enclaves as soon as we leave. And your Iraq withdrawal thing, that one hasn't worked out so well either. And Senator McCain, we all respect you for your service and the sacrifices you've made for this country. But in the end, maybe you're right. Maybe it's all just a game. Mr. President, can you understand why Americans are so dead set against this? We look at wars in the Middle East through the prism of Iraq and the lies and false narrative of Benghazi. You want us to trust you, but you're not credible, clear, or concise. Why should Americans take it on faith that what you're saying is even true? There's no end game, and we can't afford, nor do we want, a World War III. And speaking of that, Mr. President, didn't you win the Nobel Peace Prize? Yeah, you were the one. Give it back.